Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for February 6th, 2024. Well, last night, let's take a look at what we had going last night. Asian markets, we had China and Hong Kong surge big time. China was up 3.23%, up 87 points. Hong Kong surged 626 points, up 4.04. That's that tech-heavy sector over there in Hong Kong as China redoubled its efforts to stem the sell-off going on in Shanghai. Looks like they're going to be pulling out every stop that they can to try and reinvigorate their market over there as their real estate crisis continues to expand, and folks seem to have lost an awful lot of hope over there. Also, their factory information, factory data continues to decline. So, bit of a problem over there, but the government's going to step in a big way apparently and try to bail out the markets. Other than that, we had Australia, Japan, and South Korea were all lower last night. Let's take a look here in Europe this morning. Europe is mostly higher this morning. We had started up yesterday in Europe and then ended up closing mostly lower, just with all of the uncertainty that happened over here in the United States. And they're trying to push that back up despite some kind of unclear rate outlook. They're trying to be positive. Gains and losses are relatively small. If we take a look here in the U.S. markets this morning, we have futures mixed. Dow, S&P futures slightly lower, while Nasdaq futures are once again pumping to the upside as, boy, we just can't chase big tech high enough at the moment. If we take a look at oil this morning, oil's moving a little bit higher. Just ever so slightly higher, up half a point. We've also got natural gas just a little bit higher this morning. And then if we take a look at our bonds, bond yields eased off just a tiny little bit this morning. 2-year bonds coming in at 4.45. 10-year is at 4.15. So a little bit of easing there in those bond yields. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. I do truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, one of the important things we need to do is we need to shake off our bias, and we need to just look at those charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and see if we can do a little bit better job in our trading, because we focus in closely on those support, resistance, and trend levels in a chart. So first off, let's take a look. If obviously a pretty rough day there for the Dow. We were surging back up, and then at the last few minutes of the day, we sold right back off, maybe raising a little bit of uncertainty or question here in the market. Now, if the bears were able to find inspiration to continue pushing to the downside, then maybe a little test of that low right there of yesterday would be the first area to be looking at. Second area, I think, would probably be the low of these big candles here in that chart if we were going to push on lower. Past that point, we're probably looking at this bigger support here in the diamonds chart. If the bulls were to find inspiration today, well, where would we go? Well, first off, if we take a look, you can see there's a little teeny tiny bit of price resistance right in there, maybe a push up into there to test that area. Remember, we've got this upside trend that we've kind of slipped beyond, so that's a little bit of a double whammy right about there. in the chart. If we can push on through that, then maybe we're up here testing some of these high candle areas to see whether or not we can push on out and even come on up here and set new record highs in the diamond. So keep an eye on those. If we take a look at our SPY, the old SPY in here, nice little hammering pattern in here yesterday, but you want a hammer type of pattern to be at a bottom and not near a high. That could end up signaling more of a hanging man pattern, which is a bearish pattern that we'll want to be paying close attention to. So if the bears can follow through today, pushing on down, well, I would first look for a little test of support right in there on that chart. And if that were to fail, then I'm thinking maybe we start coming down in here. We start testing yesterday's low, testing support levels down in here in the chart. And if we move that far, well, just keep in mind we'll be coming into this trend to see if we can hold that trend as price support. So I don't think there's anything majorly bad here at all in the SPY. We're still in a really good condition, other than the fact that we're being led by just a handful of stocks higher while the majority of stocks continue to move lower. If we take a look to the upside, if those bulls can continue to find inspiration here today, well, then maybe a push up, we would test that area, that gap down area here of yesterday, to see whether or not we can push on through there. If we can, then the high of that candle, and if we can get through there, then we're up here testing to see if we can make some all-time high prints in the market. So keep an eye on the SPY. A little bit of uncertainty here maybe, and we might be seeing those bears milling around just a little bit, showing a little bit more tenacity. We'll see if they can follow through at all. If we take a look at our QQQ, our QQQ did a really good job of just bouncing up. NVIDIA, almost on its own, lifted everything yesterday in that big surge to the upside. And if it weren't for those tech giants, we would be looking at a very different chart today, because the majority of the Nasdaq was moving sideways to lower yesterday. If you take a look in here, pushing back up, we got a little pop and drop in the pre-market starting to show up here, but with that big surge in Hong Kong, I think there's every reason to believe that we could stretch on higher. But if we take a look, if the bears were to follow through, what could the bears do? First off, you'll notice there's a little bit of price support right in there. So pushing back, testing that area, bouncing off of that certainly is a possibility in the chart. If we break down below that area, then maybe testing yesterday's lows here in the Qs, and then of course beyond that, we're down here testing some a little bit bigger support area, and possibly even the trend here in the chart if we were to push below that area. However, if the bulls find inspiration today, there's every reason to believe, the way this is looking, that we could push right on through, make new record highs, and blue sky above there in the QQQ. So those bulls in big tech, there just seems to be no end to the desire in driving those stocks higher at the moment. So watch that close. And then if we look at IWM, well, at IWM, doggone it, once again failed back below this area, and you can see following through, breaking support in this chart yesterday, breaking that little support in here. So I turned that line red in resistance. We will want to be keeping pretty close attention to this lower high now in the Russell. That downtrend could be started here in IWM, and we'll want to watch that closely. If the bears were to continue to push today and follow through, well, the first test, of course, is going to be yesterday's low. see whether or not they could push on down through that area. If they do, then I'm suggesting that we're likely to see this area in the chart, this bigger support area in IWM, be tested. Now, the critical thing would be if that were to fail. If this were to drop through and we drop through there, I think maybe down here on the lower side, that consolidation would be likely, and that would be a little bit of a concern for the market, I'm thinking, if we break this one to a lower low. So, and that really confirms this lower high. A lower low followed by a lower low means a downtrend. Now, if we are able to hold and those bulls push back up, first off, we've got to break through this area of price resistance to the upside. If we can do that, then I'm thinking we have that opportunity then to push right back up into here, into that bigger resistance area of the chart, and of course the downtrend here in that chart. So we'll want to be watching those areas. Now, doing that puts in that possibility that we make a higher low, and then we have that ability to push on through. But let's wait and see how we deal with that resistance up here, kind of that double whammy of that downtrend and this major resistance area that we've been struggling with for a while. I think the key element here would be watching carefully if this makes a lower low. That's going to be maybe problematic for the market. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX yesterday, even with the selling, we popped up in the morning and pulled back. No fear. The market has no concern over the fact that 33% of the S&P 500 is dominated by 7 companies. Kind of an interesting situation. It's masking what's really happening in the indexes, and if you're not in those 7 tech companies, you're finding it very, very difficult to find much happening in that S&P 500. But that being said, market just doesn't have any fear at all. It seems to be very, very confident that the Fed is wrong, that all of these prices are good. This is kind of reminiscent to me. I traded through the 1999-2000 tech bubble burst, and this is very reminiscent of that. It just doesn't matter what a company is making, what they're doing, what's happening in there, as long as they talk about AI. Back in that day, it was .com, but if it has something to do with AI, we're willing to buy it and we're willing to chase it higher, even though we don't really know what that's going to mean yet. So no fear here in the market, despite the fact that we see the Fed as well saying, hey, we're going to hold these rates higher for longer. So even though we have priced stocks with the idea that rates should be down around 0. So we'll watch that carefully here in the market. We're still holding this little tiny uptrend here in the VIX. Can't tell you which way we're going to go in here, but I think the enthusiasm of the bulls continues to suggest we're going to push on higher in the markets, and we're going to see the VIX slide on back down. If we take a look at our T2122, our T2122 might be our best hope of a bit of a relief rally back to the upside. Notice our T2122 yesterday pushing down, even though we get this sense that everything is bullish in the market. The last 2 days, we've had the majority of stocks moving lower. And if we take a look in here, earlier yesterday, we were down here in the bearish reversal zone until we started getting that little lift back to the upside. So if the bears find inspiration today, just note that we don't have a whole lot of room for them to really go down heavily here in T2122. Remember that we will not go below 0. But one thing I will say is the fact that we lingered up here for so long in the stretch. If we have anything bearish come up in the market, that possibility that we could linger down here a little bit longer does have a possibility of occurring. So be prepared for that. Of course, if the bulls find that inspiration, we've created a pretty good upside opportunity in that chart. Right now, it's been all tech lifting, big tech giants lifting us higher, while the rest have been kind of floundering. We're going to need those to rebound here, those majority of stocks to rebound if we're going to start picking this back up. And then if we take a look at our T2108, T2108 also declined yesterday. It did improve on that bounce back toward the end of the day, but you'll notice in here 37% of the stocks holding above their 40-day moving average. So we're really seeing that damage with the majority of stocks, while we've got tech continuing to push higher, and a real major decoupling in these indexes where we just have a few market leaders. It's probably as thin a market as I have ever seen in my 30 plus years trading the market. So and what I mean by that, thin in leadership, there just isn't any stocks leading to the market. They're just a very small number, so we'll want to be watching that carefully. Now, that being said, we've got some support underneath here in that chart, so no particular worries here if we can hold that support in T2108. And if we bounce back up, well, then just start keeping an eye on some of these resistance levels in the chart that we'll want to be paying attention to. If we take a look at our T2107, has held up a little bit better. Notice that we didn't take out this recent low here in T2107. We're sitting there testing that area pretty carefully. We'll want to watch that closely. We haven't quite made it down here to that 50% area in the chart on T2107, but you'll notice we've got some really good support across here in the chart. So if we do push a little bit lower, watch that area of support. If those bulls can get going here today, well, watch this area up here in the chart for that next resistance level, see whether or not we can push on through there in T2107. And then T2101, we did see breadth increase yesterday as those sellers came in pretty hard, particularly in the Dow, pushing that up, but this wasn't anything major. If we were to continue to see this surging on a sell wave, that could be a little bit of a concern in the market. But if we get a relief rally in the market, we'll want to be watching that closely. A relief rally that turns this lower might be a little bit of concern, because we might be seeing that evidence in that case that the bulls are kind of wearing out. If we see that resurge to the upside with those bulls, then it could certainly mean that they are plenty strong to push us on higher. And then, of course, we have those corporate buybacks that are going to start picking up as we come out from under that blackout period on those. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here today. Our economic calendar, we've got well, obviously several things to be paying attention to from the Fed, and that's about it. You'll notice we've got some bond announcements in here, but other than that, it's going to be Mester, Kashkari. There's one bond auction. We've got Collins and we've got Hawker here talking today. Now, Hawker well after the bell, so not to worry there. And then as we transition into Wednesday, keeping in mind we've got those normal mortgage applications, we're going to have international trading goods numbers, the petroleum status number, and another big day of Fed talk. 10-year note auction is in there, but lots of Fed members out there yakking it up in the market. So watch for that uncertainty that they can oftentimes provide to the market, where some are saying, oh, we're going to cut, some are saying, no, we're not, some are saying we got to wait. A lot of uncertainty, and we could see the markets gyrate around that information here on the day. When we take a look at our earnings calendar, well, my goodness, we have a huge earnings calendar calendar today. There is a lot going on earnings. No way I can cover all of the reports that will be happening today. So if you want to catch the full list of notables, make sure you click that link just below the title of the video. That'll take you back to the morning blog, and you'll be able to grab that full list of notables. First off, one that Eli Lilly hasn't been able to do anything wrong here for a long time with their weight loss drugs, continuing to zoom here in Lilly, and it looks like we got a good report here this morning, and Eli Lilly stretching on higher here this morning, as those weight loss drugs just really are extremely popular with the public right now. If we take a look, we're going to hear from CAVA. I gotta type that right. CAVA, keep an eye on that. That's been running in a big upside trend. We've got Chipotle that will be reporting today. We're going to hear from DuPont today. Looks like they're bouncing up this morning after selling off so strongly. Keep an eye on that one. We've got Elf Beauty that we'll want to be paying attention to. We're going to hear from Hertz today. Watch that one closely. We're going to hear from Amgen today. That's been ripping to the upside. We've got KKR on the list. Lumen will be reporting today. We're going to hear from Prudential. Watch that one closely. Insurance has been really, really strong. We've got Spotify that will be reporting today. We're going to hear from Snap. So watch all of these. We've got a big day of reports, and as a matter of fact, there's a big day tomorrow and Thursday as well. So we're running through these earnings pretty quickly, and that's where we're going to find our inspiration for today. So watch those carefully. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up. But before we do that, guys, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube, and then also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, do me that favor. That'd be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. It helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who takes the time to do that. I was back on the case yesterday answering those, so I try to answer all of them, but obviously there are just times when I can't get to them with everything that I've got going, but I do my best because it is important to me that you're taking your time to do that, and I want to make sure and acknowledge that. So thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. Let's take a look at some of these stocks setting up, and remember, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. Do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in this market. There are some interesting moves that could possibly be made here with some big point swings. So make sure you're being very, very careful and cautious that you're following your trading rules, your trading guidelines, and you should never ever blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. Well, first off, let's take a look at a couple of stocks in here. Take a look at IBM. I think IBM gapped up on its earnings, pushed up into here. I'm going to pull this all the way back. Gapped up into some resistance here in the chart that goes back here to 2013, 14, even into 15. And we're struggling with that resistance here in the chart. But this nice little resting consolidation in here really hasn't seen any sellers either. Now, this is a very, very steep parabolic trend, so it is possible that we could consolidate on past that trend and even dip a little bit yet, but I would watch this closely. If this can build enough energy some point in time in here, and I've turned this entire area into an alert, I'm going to be watching this closely if this comes on around and pushes on up, because boy, anything that has anything to do with tech and AI doesn't seem to, metrics don't seem to matter anymore at all in those companies. So watch that carefully here for that possibility that could move on higher. If we take a look at stocks like AMD, now AMD has rested here quite a while. We're past that earnings report. Still an extremely bullish upside trend. The PE ratio on this stock is absolutely ridiculous, but it doesn't seem to matter as long as they continue to talk about AI. We don't know what that's really going to mean later on, but right now we're in the honeymoon phase here. So watch that carefully as this rest consolidates over here to the trend. Look for that next opportunity that could push on through to the upside. Keep a close eye on that. When we take a look at some of the defensive sector stocks, well, we've got a mix going on here. There for a while, defensive sector was showing some pretty good signs, but now a little bit of back and forth in here. But take a look at PepsiCo. PepsiCo pushing that way. We fought its way right back up here, building this cup in the chart, and now we've broken back through this resistance up here. So watch that carefully. If this can rest out here, put in a little handle, cup and handle pattern, watch that carefully. We may start getting something going here in PepsiCo to the upside. Now I got to tell you, you're going to have to wait here because the earnings on this is 2.9, and that's probably going to mess everything up. But watch that carefully here in PepsiCo. Also seeing that Coke is holding up in here. Coke popped back. We broke that support, zoomed back up here, and now we're pulling back to hold this area price support. So I'm going to report on the 13th. We got a little bit longer on this, but we know this will probably be affected by the PepsiCo earnings reports. So watch that carefully if that holds in here for that next opportunity to the upside. Looking pretty good overall. I am still watching Verizon pretty closely, even though it pulled back just a little bit yesterday. We've been seeing this quite a lot here where we initially get a sell-off just before we start coming back up. So the fact that we're still holding on to trend here, I would watch that carefully. Watch for that opportunity that Verizon may come right back around up to the upside. Looking pretty good. AT&T also may have that potential. Notice that it pulled back, found some buyers in there yesterday, right in here around that support area. So watch that carefully. AT&T may still have that opportunity to extend and go to the upside. I'd take a look at RTX. Now RTX, Raytheon here, obviously aerospace defense company. Raytheon been moving up substantially, breaking out from under this downtrend in here, continuing to move to the upside. We've got a gap above that could yet be filled in this chart. So look right up in here, that possibility that we could push up into that gap area of the chart. Raytheon, one of the reasons that this is pretty darn interesting is just simply because of the conflicts going on around the world. Raytheon has a major backlog as a weapons manufacturer, trying to catch up with all of the munitions being used. So let's watch that carefully here for that next opportunity for that upside move. If we take a look at LMT, you can see Lockheed Martin's not enjoying that same thing here in the market, where we were getting just this mix of things happening, making it really difficult, even sectors where we just can't seem to get her going. But here in LMT, breaking down, this was a beautiful short setup, stretching on lower here, so lower high, lower low. Any rally back on this, what I would be watching for is that next opportunity to pick up a short position on LMT. So here's that situation where we've got aerospace defense. We've got one looking really good, one not so good here in the market. Same thing is true when we take a look at the oil sector. Oh my goodness, when we look at oil, there are stocks that are just continuing to move lower in oil, and then stocks like PSX that seem to just never stop going to the upside. But Phillips, and this may be more from the refining side of things, because we've seen that situation where our supplies are dwindling here in the United States. So maybe we need those refiners to pick up here a little bit more. But PSX are really, really strong. But I did see stocks like ExxonMobil maybe finally putting in a higher low here in the chart. Notice that we've pushed up, a little resting pullback in here, that opportunity that could turn and go on higher as we see that a real concern starting to build on oil supplies, particularly with the Red Sea situation. We'll want to watch those closely for potential moves to the upside. Really like anything in the refining sector here. Valero, a chart looking really good, and there's quite a few others that are true refiners looking pretty good in that area. You can go to the refining watch list here in TC2000 and find a list of stocks looking pretty good. So keep an eye on some of those if we start pushing on up in these charts. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. Y'all take care, be safe, and I will see you right back here bright and early Wednesday morning. Have a great day, everyone.